This anime has so much potential and I was beyond excited. However, this anime fell a bit short for me, and honestly the fault is shared between the anime and modern anime production constraints. Shinichiro Watanabe, the creator of Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo, created a new anime known as Lazarus. Lazarus came out of nowhere and man was I excited. However, the style of anime storytelling did not allow for this anime to shine. There will be spoilers, so please check the chapters or timestamps so you do not get spoiled. I will give this anime a 6.5 or a 7 out of 10. Now if you ask me, do I think you should watch this anime? Yes, you should. In fact, I think this is a great anime for newer fans to watch. Today, I will be talking about why Lazarus failed and how this style of anime storytelling does not work for modern anime. Shinichiro Watanabe, who is famously known for Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo, has a unique style of writing. While the anime has a main goal that the characters are supposed to achieve, there are sub-goals/stories our characters go on. These sub-stories allow for character development and plot progression, which allows the audience to know and grow attached to the characters. Cowboy Bebop does an excellent job with that. While there is no real main goal behind Cowboy Bebop, we are following the story of a space cowboy and the rest of the crew. Spike Spiegel, Jet Black, and Faye Valentine are excellent characters because the anime allowed for their character arcs to be explained. Spike Spiegel, who was the cool, laid-back, and ore-farming character of Cowboy Bebop, was more than just that. Spike's background explains why he is the way he is, and the foreshadowing of what happens near the end. Samurai Champloo did an excellent job of having great filler stories that elevated the characters. In the beginning of Samurai Champloo, we see a thuggish samurai who wants 100 dumplings but doesn't want to pay for it. Mugen offers to fight off these royal samurai who are being rude to Fu, and the journey begins. The filler arcs not only gave development to Jin, Mugen, and Fu, but gave so much context toward Edo period Japan. Plus, the music by Nujabes, Fat John, and Force of Nature elevated the anime tenfold. Even though Mugen is not the strongest main character, I think Samurai Champloo does a great job at making Mugen a likable and complex character. Mugen running away from his past and then eventually being forced to confront the past was fantastic. Of course, the ending of Samurai Champloo was a well-deserved good ending from what our cast had to go through, which does not happen with Axel Gilberto, who is the main character of Lazarus. Axel is the main character of Lazarus who has the story archetype of Spike Spiegel. The issue with Axel is that his character was not interesting, had a weak backstory, and lacked aura. Spike Spiegel was a naturally cool character while Axel struggled to be naturally cool. It felt as if Watanabe tried too hard to make Axel a cool character. Some of the side characters were more interesting than Axel. Elena and Liam were better characters than Axel in my opinion. Their backstories were better, but not by much. Elena had the best story, and seeing how she progressed from where she was refreshing. Being born in a society worshiping an AI god known as Naga to being one of the greatest hackers of all time. One of the most disappointing characters was Doug. There was so much potential that could have been made with Doug but fell extremely short. Doug was supposed to be the Jet Black of the show and was nowhere near that. In fact, the only thing we know about Doug was that he was a former student of a friend of Skinner, and he happened to get kicked out because he slapped somebody for saying that a black person could not win a Nobel Peace Prize. This is pretty much it with Doug, and that really annoyed me. A cool designed character, especially as a black character who just seemed to be there to simply be there. No, I am not saying that Watanabe did that as we have to create a black character, but didn't know what to do with Doug. I was hoping that Doug would have been a mentor towards Axel or try to give him advice, but that was not the case. Of course, Christine, or Alexandra, is the Faye Valentine of the show. She is definitely beautiful, sexy, and has a spy build, which is pretty dope. I think finding out that she was a Russian spy that faked her death, changed her name, and ran away from her lover was a cool character arc. Overall, I do feel that besides character design, I think everything else was weak. Another gripe that I have is the voice acting. I think the voice acting was very amateurish and was on the lower end. Especially for voice actors from Adult Swim/Cartoon Network, it was very disappointing to say the least.
I have a pretty bad habit. I break out of prisons.
Some of the lines felt very awkward and were not delivered very well. Let's talk about the plot. The plot of Lazarus was interesting and could have been expanded upon really well. The idea of a miracle drug that everyone takes to feel good becoming the cause of their death is very dystopian. The fact it could have happened in the modern world added a nice touch to it. The idea of a group of criminals coming together to find Skinner in hope of finding a cure is a cool main objective.
Yo, Skinner, you see me in there? Remember this face. I'm coming after you.
Some of the side missions were cool but felt empty for the most part. In the first couple of episodes, we see the FBI, cartels, and Russian agents looking for who we thought was Skinner, which was cool. I do not know why we didn't continue to see other agencies and people looking for Skinner throughout the show. A majority of the time, it felt as if the crew were running around doing side missions that did not help find Skinner. It also did not add to the character development, which is why I considered it a waste. Comparing it to Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo, the side missions were horrible. Both of the previous animes added depth to the characters and their side quests or filler. Filler should elevate the characters so that we as the audience can know more about them, which is the formula that Watanabe used for storytelling, which is why his characters are so memorable. The fact that Skinner was the old man that Doug and Axel saw in the third episode is not surprising but slightly disappointing. Knowing that he was underneath their nose the entire time and then have to go to Pakistan felt kinda lame. Actually, that's not true because the flower at his grandmother's house did play some significance, but not enough where it should have been what helped Lazarus find Skinner. I do think that Inscom being the cause of Skinner's disappearance, Hoppner's creation, and even the creation of the Hundun assassins was cool. However, this should have happened earlier in the story. Having more episodes which showed Inscom's involvement in the Hundun assassin's role would have been much better, which leads to the second part regarding the plot. Too short of a season. I understand that anime production now has started going towards 12 to 14 episode seasons. That way, if the first season is good, then it can get greenlit for a second season. Especially given how expensive one anime episode takes to get animated, it would be too expensive to have a 20 to 26 episode seasons again, which is what made Lazarus significantly weaker than Samurai Champloo and Cowboy Bebop. If Lazarus was given 22 to 24 episodes and Watanabe actually wanted to write the story he wanted, it would have been 100 times better. With the plot that Watanabe created being limited to 13 episodes gave him an impossible mission. A story with that complex of a plot with multiple layers should not be limited to only 13 episodes. Similarly with the development of our characters. They barely had an episode of character development which made their limited development poor. Therefore, with the limited amount of screen time they had, it did not effectively make us care about the characters. The plot is clearly a wannabe Cowboy Bebop, but you know what? Let's leave that for the conclusion. I typically do not come up with my own ideas for a plot because I think it is disrespectful to the author, but I want to give some suggestions. The only reason why I want to give some suggestions is because Lazarus should have been much better. I will keep the same introduction because it introduced a great premise. The FBI, the CIA, Russian spy network, and even the cartel should have been involved more. These groups should have been involved to make Lazarus do more research on who was behind Skinner's disappearance. That way, when Lazarus realizes it's not any of those networks but Inscom, it would have been really dope to see. When Elena goes back to her village and the AI god is being evil, should have been a subplot with more development. Simply because the idea of a remote village following AI technology is almost ironic. Of course, the main thing that should change is the development of Doug and Axel. I believe there should have been more arcs with both of them involved so that they could grow their relationship. Give Doug a more meaningful and darker background which explains his more laid back and mature demeanor. Rewrite Axel's character to where he is naturally cool, nice one-liners, and still keeps his ending. I'm not saying that for the Lazarus characters to be a rework of Cowboy Bebop characters, but they definitely need a rework. I don't think a tragic ending needed to happen for Lazarus to be good, but them finding Skinner in the homeless camp was a bit lame. I would have had Lazarus find Skinner on one of the islands that he purchased, filling in the sand ready to die. Lastly, I would have expanded upon the treatment Axel received while in prison and why that plot was introduced. The way that plot point was covered up was that everyone who was a part of Lazarus was at the airport when the prototype went viral. I enjoyed Lazarus, but I believe one of the key elements is that Watanabe did not want to create Lazarus. It is very clear Adult Swim told him to make another Cowboy Bebop, which he didn't want. However, the most important lesson as to why Lazarus was lackluster is because of Keiko Nobumoto. Keiko Nobumoto passed away in 2021 and was responsible for writing Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo. Her magic is what made Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo extremely good and memorable. According to an article from ANN, Lazarus didn't have a clear direction or goal with storytelling, which I believe is one of the most noticeable things while watching it. The writing room for Lazarus was clearly unseasoned vets, which is why this show came off as amateurish. The pacing is something that clearly needed work, which is why I stressed the idea of having 20 to 24 episodes. I feel the ending was a bit rushed and lacked any real impact or meaningfulness. Yes, there was a happy ending for our characters, but it didn't feel good. The entire show felt empty and practically just a good demonstration of animation from MAPPA Studio. The fight scenes and scenery were one of the highlights of the entire show. I don't know if I'm more disappointed in the fact this show could have been 100 times better or the fact that I would have much rather them kept this in the vault. However, I do believe comparing this to Cowboy Bebop makes watching this anime hard to do. Nostalgia definitely plays a role, but even without knowing about Cowboy Bebop, this anime still falls short. I have rewatched Lazarus and I can say it is much better to watch as a binge. To conclude, MAPPA did a great job animating, the music was fantastic, Adult Swim needs to never touch anime again unless you give it an appropriate amount of episodes, and Watanabe, please get a seasoned writer on your anime. Thanks for watching this video, follow me on Twitter, leave a like if you enjoyed, it's been your boy Bugzey, see you later, Space Cowboy.